let's talk about how you can step up your voice acting game, whether you're a dungeon master, a player, or just somebody who likes to do funny voices. Voice acting. They're two halves of a whole. The acting part is huge and well beyond the scope of this video. There's entire courses, hell, there's entire schools that teach you about acting, so I'm not even gonna try. I'm not a professional actor, so not going anywhere near that. But the voice part, I can help you out with. Today, we're gonna talk about several techniques that you can layer on top of each other, one after another, to achieve a very unique voice for any number of characters. Now, the first technique that we're going to talk about is also the simplest. It's one that anybody can do, and one that everybody does at some point or another, and that is controlling the pitch of your voice. Everybody's pitch range is different. Some people can bring their voice really, really high. Others can bring their voice really, really low, and that's okay. If you can't hit the highest of high notes and the lowest of low notes, don't sweat it. This isn't The Voice or American Idol. There are no prizes to be won, and you're not singing. Or maybe you are in your game. I don't know. I don't sing in mine because I'm such a bad singer, I can't even hit the wrong notes. Despite what your range is, you do have a range. Everybody has a range. You can bring your voice higher up if you wanted to. How high? It's up to you. This is really good for younger characters, and skinnier and smaller characters, and even sometimes feminine characters. If you bring your pitch back down to the mid-level, that's about your baseline. Again, this is my baseline. If I were to lower that back down, I get to the lower pitch ranges. This is the stockier, beefier characters, more masculine, tougher, and sometimes even the evil ones. You probably already know how to modulate the pitch of your voice by muscle memory. This is something that everybody does, like I said. But mechanically speaking, what you're doing is you are raising and lowering your larynx. The function of your larynx, among other things, is to control and modulate the pitch of your voice. When your larynx goes up, you receive a higher pitch voice. If your larynx goes down, you receive a lower pitch. So that's how that works mechanically. Now we're going to go on and talk about some other things, and we're going to go into the mechanics of it inside of your throat and inside of your mouth to help you get a better understanding of exactly what's going on and exactly how you can achieve these effects. Once you've gotten used to playing with the pitch of your voice, you're ready to move on to our next technique, and that is modifying your articulators. Now what is an articulator, you might ask? It's a good question. You already know what they are, but you probably just didn't know the name for them. Now, an articulator is your lips, your teeth, your soft palate, your nasal cavities, your larynx, basically everything in here that helps you make noise. The way that your tongue and your lips and your larynx and all of that moves during your normal speech is specific to you. It's all muscle memory in how you talk, and it's what makes you sound like you and not somebody else. And whenever you consciously modify how one of these things moves, you change how you sound. You don't necessarily sound like you anymore because your articulators aren't moving like you're used to. The first articulator that we're going to talk about is your lips. Your lips shape the sounds that are coming out of your mouth. If you're making a noise, ha, and you change your lips to a different shape, how, it drastically changes the sound. Likewise, when you're talking, if you're saying something and you change where your lips are at or how they're shaped, it drastically changes how you sound, how you're talking. This is a very easy technique that anybody can employ, regardless of how good you think you are at doing voices. So if I'm speaking to you like this and I move my lips to the side, I'm going to start to sound like this. Now, this is kind of a voice that I would employ for maybe some sort of some hobo that's on a railroad track and giving some advice to the characters. You see, he's a wise old grifter, and he's got a lot of he knows the ropes, he knows the land. You know what I'm saying? Now, what character you would use that for? I don't know. Whatever character you want, but it's a very different sound than my normal voice. Another position that you could use is pushing your lips forward, puckering them out, and then talking like this. This is a very, very different sound from what I'm talking normally. And what kind of character would you use for this for? I have no idea. When I'm reading The Little Engine That Could, I use this for the clown when he's trying to get help from the other engines. Okay, but that's just me. Now, when you pull your lips in the reverse direction over your teeth, you look like this. Well, you sound like you just don't have any teeth at all. This is great for old characters that they don't have any teeth. They fell out years ago. So, great technique there. If you pull your lips up over your teeth so you kind of look like Fire Marshal Bill, you start to talk like a skeleton. And you can't really make any, I can't even say it because it starts with a P, but plosive noises. You can't do it there. Plosives are when you're doing the p, b, k, when air shoots out of your mouth. You need your lips for those. And when you pull your lips like this, you can't do those. Okay? So great skeleton kind of voice. Why would your skeleton be talking? I don't know. They don't have lungs, but you know what? They don't walk around either. It's magic. So if you want a talking skeleton, that's a great way to do it. Next on our list of articulators is your jaw. Now, you change your jaw position, again, it's going to change your voice. If you push your jaw forward when you're speaking, you begin to sound like this. Now, this is a very sort of imperious tone. This is somebody that's very used to being taken seriously. They expect you to do exactly what you're told to do. This is the basis of the lockjaw accent that you would hear employed most famously on Gilligan's Island by Mr. Howell. I also use it in my Curse of Strahd game as the Baron Vargas Vlakovich. Okay, so that's pushing the jaw forward. Now, if you pull your jaw in the reverse direction, you pull it back, you begin to sound like this. It's, gosh, I don't know what this kind of character would be, but he doesn't sound very smart. But, I like irony, so in my game, this would probably be an intelligence 20 character, so yeah. Now, if you push it to the side, you begin to sound, again, kind of differently. It's kind of a mix between the two. And, yeah, again, I don't know. It's worked really well on The Witcher, so see how you can work it into your games. But if you're going to move your jaw around, just make sure you don't have wisdom teeth. Wow. Next up on our articulators list is your tongue. Like everything else here, if you change the shape of your tongue, you drastically change the shape of your voice. The mobility of people's tongues is variable. So if you can't change the shape of your tongue very easily, don't sweat it. Just do what you can, work with what you have. However, if you have a very mobile tongue, you're going to find these techniques a lot easier, and you may even be able to achieve techniques that I can't if you have a much more mobile tongue than I do. Our first technique is flaring our tongue out. You're going to try to push the sides of your tongue out over your molars, and the tip of your tongue is going to kind of remain immobile against the bottom front teeth. If you can achieve this technique, you get this really great geeky voice, like you have a retainer or braces with lots of rubber bands in your mouth. It's wonderful if you can get a nice good run of S's, like seashells, seashells, it's a seashore. Next, let's do the reverse of that, and we're going to pull our tongue inwards from the sides and kind of bunch it up in the middle of our mouths. Now we do that, and it starts to sound like we have a very full mouth. We got something in there like food. If you mix that up with chewing noises, it really sounds like we're in the middle of a meal, Please don't bother me, I'm eating dinner. What if you had to play a character that didn't have a tongue at all? Now, besides cutting out your own tongue, what you can do is you can curl your tongue back in your mouth. The bottom part of your tongue right here goes up against the roof of your mouth, and you start to sound like this. It's almost like you don't have a tongue at all because it's completely immobilized in your mouth, except for a very bad person, which they can't cut out, at least very easily. So you will still be understood, but it sounds like you don't have a tongue. or at least I hope I can be understood. Now, this is speculation. I don't actually know anybody that doesn't have a tongue, but that's what I imagine that they would sound like. Now that we've covered some of the basic articulators, let's talk about another technique that you can layer on top of them, and that is speech impediments, or speech disorders. Now, these are going to make your characters stand out, okay? Your players are going to remember anybody that has a stutter or a stammer, okay? You're going to want to use these very sparingly. Now, before I jump into some examples and some mechanics and all of that, I want to say up front, I am not trying to make fun of anybody. I'm not trying to be offensive, okay? I'm simply trying to convey techniques as I see them. I obviously don't have any of these speech disorders, so I probably am not going to sound 100% natural. Again, this is not my attempt to make fun of anybody. So that being said, let's go ahead and dive into our first technique. Now, first up is the lisp. Now, basically everybody knows how to do a lisp, at least in some sort of general terms, but chances are you're doing it in a much more exaggerated fashion than you need to, and it's very unnatural. Most people's first instinct is to put their tongue, the tip of their tongue, on the back of their teeth, and that gives them this kind of sound like right here, and you don't want to do this because it doesn't sound normal, okay? That's not how a real lisp sounds. Instead of using the back of your teeth, you're going to use what's called your alveolar ridge. Now, this is the bump that is just behind your top teeth as it leads into the roof of your mouth. This is where your L's and your N's are formed by your tongue. So next time you're going to make an S sound, put your tongue there like you're making an L. In fact, make an L sound right now, but try to form an S. So it's going to sound like S, S, S. Okay, that is a much more lispy kind of S. So lisp, lisp, okay? This is gonna take a lot of practice. Even I'm not that great at it because I don't do lisps all that often. But pay attention to where your tongue is at, use your alveolar ridge, and practice. And eventually you're gonna sound great when you do this. Okay, maybe great's not the perfect word for this, but you're gonna sound pretty natural, okay? Practice. Next up, we have stammering. Just like the lisp, this is going to take a lot of practice to make it sound natural. One aspect of a stammer is called a stutter. This is an involuntary sound repetition either on a whole syllable or part of a syllable. To give you an example of this, we're going to use the sentence, "Let's open the door and go under the table." With a stutter, we would probably get hung up on the consonants or the harder syllables. So using that example, the sentence might sound a bit like this. Let's open the door and go under the table. Another aspect of a stammer is the prolonging of certain letter sounds. This is where the person's vocal cords freeze up while they're trying to get that part of the word out. This is called a fixed posture. So with the word maybe, you might get hung up on the letter M and sound like maybe we should go to the store. In real life, how much a person stammers is variable. They might stammer less when they're whispering. They might stammer more when they're nervous, or any other number of factors. If you're going to have a character that you're portraying on a regular basis that has a stammer, I recommend introducing these sort of variabilities into their personality. It'll add a lot to the mix and a lot to the character. Last up on our speech impediments is a shaky voice. Now in real life, this is called spasmodic dysphonia, and it's a degenerative disorder of the vocal cords. Now, as you age, it causes your vocal cords to spasm and shake while you're speaking. And this results in a tight, shaky, and groany voice. To achieve this, what we do first is we have to tighten up our vocal cords. You're going to close off your airway a little bit, and you're going to kind of sound like this. That's the first step. If you can sound like this, you're doing great, okay? Now, after you've done that, you have to introduce the shaky part. That's the trick, okay? Again, like the other disorders, this is gonna take practice. Since it's very difficult to make your own vocal cords shake, you might find it helpful to shake your head or your body while you're trying to do this sort of voice. So if I, again, tighten my vocal cords up like this, and then I start kind of shaking around, I get this reedy sort of
shaky voice that might be for an old person. Again, it takes practice. So just do your best and see what you can do with it.
This type of voice lends itself well to the old and the infirmed. Your players probably aren't going to worry about them swinging a sword at them, but a well-placed fireball wouldn't be out of place. Let's add yet another layer to all of this with dialects. A dialect is a manner of speaking or communicating that is unique to a particular region or a group of people. They'll have their own words or their own ways of communicating altogether. So what does a dialect look like in practice? Let's go ahead and run through a few examples. First up, we'll do the standard American greeting of, "Hello everyone." If we translate that through the Southern American dialect, that would become, "Howdy y'all." Next, let's do a bit more of a complex example. "You guys go down and explore that crevasse." If we translate that into Ozark English, it becomes, "Y'all go down into that holler and do some auguring around." If your players are exploring a faraway land, you can give a great sense of farawayness by adding in a dialect to the local people. They speak in a way that's completely different from your characters and your players. Or if you want something a bit more close to home, you could have a particular character in your players' hometown have their own dialect. That would signal that person very distinctly as a foreigner to those parts. If you hadn't guessed already, dialects can take a lot of work and a lot of forethought. And like speech disorders, a lot of practice. You have to do this over and over and over again to not trip over your own tongue, especially if you're not used to doing that dialect. It doesn't come naturally. Now, you also probably noticed in my examples that I had an accent. Now, when I did the Ozark accent and the Southern accent, I immediately and instinctively changed my voice. Whether that happens naturally or not, I'm not entirely sure. You'll have to let me know down in the comments. If you're trying out a different dialect, do you automatically slip into that accent? Or is that just something that I do? Now, I like accents, and that is another piece of voice acting that is big. I want to talk about that in a future video because accents are probably one of my favorite things in all of linguistics. I love the way that different people throughout the world sound, and I love trying to imitate them. So let me know what you think about dialects and accents and all of that. And if you like this kind of content, go ahead and click that subscribe button. And if you want to support us, head over to our Patreon channel and hit us up there. We'd love to see you get behind us and help the channel grow.